The knock on Daniel's door that evening didn't just interrupt his quiet routine, it brought a woman whose words would unravel everything he thought he knew about his past, his mother, and the life he had struggled so hard to rebuild. Daniel had just finished helping his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, with her homework when the knock came. It was soft at first, almost hesitant, like someone unsure if they should even be there. He wiped his hands on a worn towel and walked to the door, expecting maybe a neighbor or a delivery mistake. But when he opened it, his breath caught. A woman stood there, elegant, composed, dressed in a way that didn't belong in their modest neighborhood. Her heels clicked lightly against the cracked concrete, her dark eyes scanning him with a mix of curiosity and something deeper, something almost emotional. "Daniel Carter?" she asked. "Yes," he replied cautiously. She held up a small, folded piece of paper. "Your mom gave me this address." The words hit him like a sudden storm. "My mom?" he repeated, his voice tightening. "That's not possible. She passed away 2 years ago." The woman's expression softened, but she didn't look surprised. "I know," she said quietly. "That's why I'm here." Before he could respond, Lily peeked from behind his leg. "Daddy, who is it?" The woman's eyes shifted to the little girl, and something changed in her face, a flicker of warmth, almost pain. "I'm sorry to intrude," she said, her voice gentler now. "My name is Elena. I think your mother wanted me to find you." Daniel hesitated. Every instinct told him to close the door. Life had taught him to be careful, to trust slowly. But something about her, maybe the way she said his mother, felt real. He stepped aside. "You better come in." The house was small but neat. Toys were tucked into corners, and framed photos filled the walls, mostly of Lily, a few of Daniel's mother. Elena noticed them immediately. "She looks kind," Elena said, pointing at one picture. "She was," Daniel replied. "Strong too. She raised me alone." Elena nodded, almost as if confirming something she already knew. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "She left this with me," Elena said. "Years ago." Daniel frowned. "Why would my mom leave something with a stranger?" "I wasn't a stranger to her," Elena said softly. "Not exactly." He took the envelope, his hands trembling slightly. It was old, the edges worn. His name was written on it, in his mother's handwriting. For a moment, the world went silent. He opened it carefully. Inside was a letter. As he read, his heart pounded harder with every line. His mother wrote about sacrifices, about secrets she had carried her entire life. About a promise she had made, and a debt she could never repay. And then came the part that made him look up at Elena in disbelief. "She helped me once," Daniel whispered. "Saved my life, when I was pregnant with you." Elena's eyes filled with emotion. "Your mother gave me everything when I had nothing," she said. "And I spent years trying to find her again, but I was too late." Daniel shook his head. "This doesn't make sense." "It will," Elena replied. "But first, you need to know the truth about who she really was." Hook, Chapter 2. What Daniel discovered next would force him to question everything, because the woman standing in his living room wasn't just connected to his mother's past, she was about to change his daughter's future forever. The night stretched on as Elena told her story. Years ago, she had been a struggling young woman, alone, desperate, and on the verge of losing everything. Daniel's mother had found her, helped her, and refused to take anything in return. "She told me," Elena said, her voice trembling slightly, "that kindness should never come with a price. But I didn't agree. I promised myself that one day I would repay her." Daniel listened in silence, his mind racing. "And you became," he gestured vaguely at her appearance. "A billionaire?" Elena finished with a small, almost ironic smile. "Yes. Life turned in ways I never expected." Daniel exhaled sharply. So what does this have to do with me? Elena looked at Lily, who had fallen asleep on the couch. Everything, she said. She explained how she had searched for his mother for years. When she finally found her, it was too late, but his mother had left one final wish. She didn't want money for herself, Elena said. She wanted security for you. For Lily. Daniel stiffened. We don't need charity. It's not charity, Elena replied firmly. It's a promise. She handed him another document. It was a trust, one that could change their lives completely. Education, healthcare, a home, everything secured. Daniel stared at it, overwhelmed. I can't accept this, he said. Elena stepped closer, her voice steady but emotional. Then don't accept it for yourself. Accept it for her, she said, glancing at Lily. Silence filled the room. For years, Daniel had struggled, working long hours, sacrificing sleep, doing everything he could to give his daughter a good life. He had never asked for help. But now, this wasn't just help. It was his mother's last wish. Days passed, and Elena didn't disappear. She returned, not with luxury or pressure, but with patience. She spent time with Lily, helping her read, laughing with her in ways Daniel hadn't seen in a long time. Slowly, something changed. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Daniel spoke. Why are you really doing this? He asked. Elena looked at him, her expression honest. Because your mother believed in me when no one else did, she said. And, because I see that same strength in you. Daniel looked down, unsure how to respond. And maybe, she added softly, I don't want to lose the chance to be part of something real. Their eyes met, and for the first time, it wasn't about the past or the promise. It was about something new. Something unexpected. Over time, trust grew into friendship. Friendship turned into something deeper, something neither of them had planned. Daniel realized that love doesn't always arrive in familiar ways. Sometimes, it comes knocking on your door, carrying pieces of your past and the promise of a better future. And Elena discovered that success meant nothing without someone to share it with. In the end, Daniel accepted the gift, not as charity, but as love passed from one heart to another. And as Lily laughed between them, holding both their hands, it became clear. That one act of kindness, years ago, had created a chain of love strong enough to change 3 lives forever. Because sometimes, the greatest blessings don't come from what we earn, but from what we give, and what we're brave enough to accept. It looks like you meant, Chapter 3, so here's the continuation of your story in the same emotional, engaging style. Hook, Chapter 3. Just when Daniel thought life had finally settled into something peaceful, a single sentence from Elena shattered that calm. There's something I didn't tell you, and it might change how you see me forever. The days had started to feel lighter. For the first time in years, Daniel wasn't constantly worried about bills piling up or whether he could give Lily the life she deserved. The small house that once felt like a place of survival now felt like a home again, filled with laughter, warmth, and something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time, hope. And Elena had become a part of it. Not in a loud or overwhelming way, but gently, like she had always belonged there. She'd stop by after work, sometimes in simple clothes instead of her usual polished look, sitting on the floor with Lily, helping her with puzzles or reading bedtime stories in soft voices that drifted down the hallway. Daniel would watch from a distance at first. Then slowly, he found himself joining them. One evening, after Lily had fallen asleep between them on the couch, Daniel carefully lifted her and carried her to bed. When he returned, Elena was standing by the window, looking out into the quiet street. You're good with her, Daniel said. Elena smiled faintly. She's easy to love. There was a pause. Then her expression shifted, serious, almost conflicted. Daniel, she said softly, there's something I didn't tell you. He felt it instantly, that subtle change in the air, the kind that comes before something important. "What is it?" he asked. She hesitated. "For years, after your mother helped me, I tried to build something meaningful. Not just wealth, but impact. And eventually, I created a foundation." Daniel nodded slowly. "That doesn't sound like something you'd hide." "I didn't hide that part," she said. "I hid how deeply your mother was involved in it." He frowned. "What do you mean?" Elena turned to face him fully now. "The foundation, it's named after her," she said. "Every scholarship, every home we built, it all carries her legacy." Daniel's chest tightened. "She didn't just help me," Elena continued. "She inspired everything I became. Anne. I made decisions in her name. Big ones." "Like what?" Daniel asked carefully. Elena took a deep breath. "A major expansion," she said. "We're opening centers across the country. One of them is here." Daniel blinked. "Here?" "Yes," she said. "In this city. And I was hoping." She paused, searching his face. "I was hoping you'd be part of it." Daniel stepped back slightly, surprised. "Me?" he asked. "I'm just a mechanic. A single dad. I don't belong in your world." Elena shook her head immediately. "That's exactly why you do," she said. "This isn't about business suits or boardrooms. It's about people who understand struggle. Who know what it means to fight for every little thing." He looked down, conflicted. "I don't know anything about running a foundation," he admitted. "You know something more important," she replied. "You know what people need. You've lived it." Silence filled the space between them. Daniel thought about his mother, about everything she had sacrificed. About how she had helped Elena without expecting anything in return. And now, years later, that kindness had grown into something bigger than he could have ever imagined. "You really think I can do this?" he asked quietly. Elena stepped closer. "I know you can," she said. Their eyes held for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, Daniel let out a small laugh. "You know, my life was simple before you knocked on that door." Elena smiled softly. "Better or worse?" He looked at her, really looked this time. "Better," he said. The word hung between them, heavy with meaning. And in that moment, something shifted again, not just between them, but within Daniel himself. For the first time, he wasn't just thinking about surviving the future. He was ready to build it. Weeks later, the foundation center opened. It wasn't extravagant, but it was alive. Families walked in with cautious hope, children laughed in corners filled with books and colors, and people who had once felt invisible were finally being seen. Daniel stood near the entrance, watching it all unfold. Elena walked up beside him. "This is your mother's legacy," she said softly. Daniel shook his head. "No," he replied. "This is yours too. And yours now," she added. He glanced at her, then at Lily, who was running toward them with a bright smile. "Look, Daddy. They have so many books," she said excitedly. Daniel knelt down, hugging her tightly. "Yeah," he said, his voice full of emotion. "And they're just the beginning." As he stood back up, his hand found Elena's. This time, neither of them pulled away. Because sometimes, life doesn't just give you a second chance. It gives you a purpose. And sometimes, love doesn't arrive as a grand, dramatic moment. It grows quietly, through trust, through kindness, through showing up, again and again. And it all started with a simple knock on a door.